yes, I want to, quote unquote, please my clients and the brands that I work with, but I also just want to like win. And sometimes the client doesn't know how to win. You can say, oh, like, let's keep 25%. But like, if I put myself in their shoes, it's like, but that doesn't actually, like, you're not actually growing. That doesn't actually, you're not succeeding. You're not growing. You're just
Right.
putting this arbitrary rule. And so scoreboard is profit. And so
Yeah.
if I can find a better way to make it go up, it's usually just challenging that and testing
Yeah.
it.
If you're building a DTC brand in the early stages, then you already know that this part does not look like Instagram. All right, it's it's late nights, it's hard decisions, it's cash flow, and it's just trying to build systems before everything breaks. All right, so this podcast is for you. This is a place where founders who are already a few steps into the journey. We're talking retention, revenue systems, and really the personal cost of what it means to build something that's real to you and real to the world. And so this is Operator to Operator. Hi, I'm Shopé. I am the co-founder of Alter Aesthetics Company and the founder of Building Block Digital. Welcome to the Margin Room. On today's episode, I have the distinguished honor of speaking with somebody who I personally admire. He's also a friend of mine, and we've worked together. And I've kind of like just watched him do some amazing work from a distance. And he's kind of blowing up on LinkedIn as well. So, I'm saying if you don't know who he is, you definitely need to tap in. So today we're talking to someone who didn't get into this thing just for like tactics and stuff. He got in here to truly understand what the numbers actually mean, right? Sebastian Valiente is the founder of Growth Pod, and he's a strategist who helps brand read their own signals better, right? Not just to chase like vanity metrics, but to actually understand what's actually driving profit in a real way, retention, and really intelligent growth. So we're going to talk systems, measurement, mistakes, real decisions that separate thoughtful operators from just the wannabes. So with that said, Sebastian, aka Sebi V, welcome to the Margin Room.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me. This is great.
Listen, excited to have you, brother. Let's just start kind of like real light. How are you feeling today? How are things?
Good. Good. I'm at a co-working space downtown. I was with a buddy at Othership. Have you heard of Othership?
Yep. Cold
Yeah, it was
plunges and breath work
in
and all that.
saunas. Yeah, we were doing that this morning. So no, it's been a good day. Just here. I'm just working.
Feeling energized?
I'm feeling calm,
No, I feel
No, it's
that.
nice. Yeah.
No, that's dope. That's dope. All right, let's jump into this because like you're a metrics and a numbers man, and I want this to be actionable. I want this to be real. Um, but I also want you to flex if you want to. You know what I'm saying? So let's start top level. Give me the real headline right now. I know you are behind a couple of different brands, so you're not just like, I think that's a unique advantage you have. You work in CPG, you work in one-time purchases, you worked in lifestyle, all over the place. So across all of the different brands that you're working with, what's going well right now versus what is quietly stressing you out with some of the brands that you're working with?
Hmm. What is going well? That's an interesting question. It. I think yeah, it's funny. I get posed this question a good amount, and it kind of assumes that there is like a linear pattern across every brand as it pertains to, growth, but there really isn't. It's like every single situation is like very unique to the other. Um, I mean, you could take the exact same brand selling the exact same product and still have different scenarios, different circumstances that affect everything. So I don't think I can say there's any one thing that I'm seeing across everything that's like, oh, this is the one thing that if you do, it's gonna work. It's
Snapshot it
unfortunately
for me.
pretty
Snapshot it
unique.
for me. Let's just say, sorry to cut you off. Snapshot it for me. This one thing is working well in this brand. This other
Yeah,
brand, this is something that's kind of stressing me out.
sure. So I mean, there are some brands. I'm just looking at my list of brands now. Like there are some brands where um the main lever that we're pulling is just creative and ad creative, and that is enough for the most part. And there are other brands where that isn't enough, or at least it's not as easy to get the value out of it. There's one brand in particular that I'm thinking of. They do 8 figures a year. They spend, let's say, about 14K a day right now on Meta.
14K a
Um,
day?
yeah. Uh,
Them is some
and
big boy numbers. Keep going.
Yeah. So for them, they're currently plateaued in terms of, by plateau I mean that if we spend more, we start to see profit deteriorate a little bit too quickly. And so one thing that we're doing there is trying to unlock net new angles slash messaging in the ad account to with the hopes of essentially unlocking new profitable spend, i.e. ad spend that makes our contribution margin go up. Um and the thing is, it's hard. It's just because what you're trying to do on one level is you're equivalently, it's almost like starting from scratch with a brand, and trying to build up a new paid acquisition funnel, because you're trying not to rely on the same talking points and messaging that got you to where you're at now. So in some ways it's like building from the ground up, which is difficult. But yeah, I guess those are some of the things that are working, and an example of something that, is
It's a little more
is
challenging.
challenging. Yeah, for sure.
So now running a brand is like multifaceted, right? So you're in growth, which I guess would be housed under marketing. But as you can imagine, like contribution margin is also affected by things like in ops, right? Or in
Mhm.
fulfillment and logistics or things like that. So
Mhm.
how much insight or access do you have to these other parts of the business
Yeah.
that you can use to influence your strategy on what we do and what is actually effective? Because
Yeah,
you can,
the whole thing. So
yeah,
like the most effective, I mean, like, it's funny, it's the line between, let's say, CMO, CEO, and CFO are very blurred
yeah,
in the e-commerce business model. Um and obviously that is, we can get into why and things like that. But so with a lot of the brands that I'm working with, the lines are super blurred for me. Like, I know how much the warehouse costs, and I know how much the 3PL fees are, and this, that, and the other, because I have to, because otherwise, yeah, you don't have enough
holistic view.
clarity to be able to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's dope. That's amazing. All right, so let's keep things a little high level for a little longer. Why growth strategy specifically, right? So, like for you personally, how did you get into this, and like why did you need to solve this personally? What drew you into this as opposed to other?
Well, I started as a media buyer, quote unquote, which traditionally that used to mean someone that would just buy ads and manage the ad account. Really, the scope of that, and originally, was, you know, managing the budgets, in-platform optimizations, not much more than that. And what happened kind of over time is, to be able to make, like, media buying became less and less of a lever, and it was all the things outside of the ad account or pre the ad account that really affected growth. And so when I was put on accounts and I was like, okay, like, make these grow. This is when I was working at an agency. Um, I kind of realized pretty quickly that there was nothing that I was gonna do in the ad account that was gonna make that happen. It was all about, creative, landers, unit economics. And so by virtue of simply wanting to, be successful and actually grow the businesses that I was working with, it just naturally led me to all the things that I had started to realize you needed to understand to actually grow a brand. And so that it was really just out of, I guess, necessity, if you will, in that sense. I wanted to
For sure.
actually grow the brands. And so um from a pretty early from pretty early on in my career, I was kind of willing to do whatever it took. And so very quickly that took me outside of just media buying and into everything else, and kind of led me to where I'm at now.
Yeah, so let's talk about that practically, right? So, like, how did you practically increase your skills? Because now you're talking about unit economics, as you mentioned. You're learning about other parts of the business. How did you grow your skills in these other areas, whether it's coding, because I know you also code, at least build websites, understanding really business as a whole.
Mm.
Practically,
So,
was it courses, self-learning, experimenting with your own money, etc.?
well, yeah, well, so I was working as, like, I guess what you would call an entry level junior media buyer. To be honest, they would just give us accounts. I it was, in one sense, it was free reign. I kind of went above and beyond and chose to get a lot more involved than, let's say, the average person would in the businesses that I was given to work with. And so, working with those accounts gave me that kind of experimentation ground, if you will. Um, but definitely not as much courses, but definitely consulting. I've paid for a lot of consulting hours with just a bunch of people that I've met online just to pick people's brain, for sure. Obviously, I think being tapped in on like DTC Twitter and LinkedIn is huge, because a lot of people are just kind of like sharing the stuff that they see working. But yeah, it was really just a matter of, I had these accounts, and I went above and beyond my job description and work scope. And so it was a lot of that.
Yeah, you just naturally learn and build. Excellent. All right, now let's start zooming in a little bit. Okay, so when you audit a brand's performance, a brand comes and says, "Hey, we want to grow."
Hmm.
What's the most common or one of the most common misunderstandings that founders have?
Yeah, the answer changes on the depending on the size of the business, mostly. The bigger brands are a little bit more sophisticated, but let's say if the average brand that's doing, up to, let's say, $6 million a year, let's say, um, they don't typically, yeah, as it relates to profitability, what they don't understand is the difference between, so, gross profit, contribution margin, and I guess what you would call EBITDA. Um, and they don't understand which one of those pertains to what in the business. So, for example, if you are if you're looking at EBITDA to assess, let's say, the performance of your marketing, well, that's problematic because you're factoring in OpEx, which is not necessarily a function of your marketing. And so that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Um, if you are and so then understanding, okay, well, then what is the actual metric? Well, you can look at contribution margin. You can look at all the money that you make after cost of goods and marketing spend, essentially all your variable costs. Um, that's a much better indicator of your marketing. So that's one. Another one is, most people, most brand owners, and even marketers, don't understand the let me think about how to word this. They don't understand the difference, or they haven't thought about the difference between uh relative metrics and absolute ones. So a relative metric would be something like um contribution margin as a percent of revenue, or um blended ROAS, where you'd like, what is your blended return on your spend? So most marketers, or even and by nature brand people, are kind of, for whatever reason, trained to look at these relative metrics. Okay, well, if the higher my metric is, the better, right? And so let's say if we're looking at blended ROAS, it's like, well, the higher my blended ROAS, the better, or the higher my percent of revenue that my contribution margin is, the better. But it's not actually the case. So the very simple example is, these actual numbers that I give might not be the case, might not be the best example, but would you rather have, let's say, 30% contribution margin, or 30% contribution margin of 100 grand, or 20% contribution margin of, let's say, 300 grand? It's like, if you're just looking at the relative numbers, it's like that number goes down, and so you would be inclined to say, well, that's bad, right? But the better approach is actually just to look at the absolute numbers. In this case, your absolute profit or absolute contribution margin. Because what'll happen is, as you grow, your efficiency will start to go down. But that doesn't mean that your absolute profit is not going up. In fact, it's usually the opposite. And so what'll happen is, you'll get less efficient, but you will make more money. Like, the number of dollars that's in your bank account will go up, but your relative performance metrics, like blended ROAS or contribution margin percent, will go down. That's what happens naturally as you begin to spend more and scale. Um, but if you're
Is there an
so imagine
interplay? Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, just imagine, like, this happens all the time, where like these brands or marketers, they limit themselves thinking that they're doing the brand a service when all you're really doing is just you're profiting ROAS, but really like ROAS doesn't mean anything to your bank account. You know what I mean? But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So is there an interplay between relative versus absolute? Because you're right, as a company grows, it gets less efficient, and so your contribution margin drops. But I think this is related to the conversation of the conversation of like revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, or something to that effect. So at some
Totally.
point in time, like I would imagine, is there? I guess this is what I'm trying to say. Is there a floor? Might vary from brand to brand, my by vertical by vertical, but is there a floor below which you don't want to see contribution margin drop? Because you're right, if the bank account is bigger, but expenses are also high and contribution margin is lower, at some point it becomes this like you're growing, but like that's a ticking time bomb. At some point you're going to implode, right?
Well,
So
it depends on what you mean. Do you mean absolute contribution margin dollars, or do you mean contribution margin as a percent of
dollars.
revenue?
So contribution margins as a
No, so what I'm saying is it should always be going up. If it's going down, that's a problem. But what I'm saying is you can make more contribution margin, but your percent of contribution margin of your overall revenue can still go down.
Oh, got you. That's like that's so funny because that's a relative of a relative. It almost sounds like because this isn't just contribution margin; it's contribution margin as a percentage of your overall revenue. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah,
Ah, okay,
correct.
got you. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes
Exactly. Yeah,
sense.
that's what I mean by relative is like the contribution margin percent. Where contribution margin dollars is absolute. It's not
Got you.
relative, right? You either
Yeah,
it's but the percent is relative. So that's what I'm saying. You could be making more dollars, getting more money in the bank, but the
got
percent
you.
of revenue that contribution margin represents can be going down.
How did you come about this? I saw you post about this like a little while ago. How did you come about this revelation, if you will? Is it a
Well,
new thing?
it's not new. No, it's not new. This
Well,
is
is it new
understood.
for you? Is what I mean.
Yeah. It's not anymore. I think it came about just by you know, as I'm working with brands and growing them, it's like just like spending every day looking at these numbers and then thinking through them, be like, oh, wait a second, we can actually just it's like constantly challenging certain beliefs that people have. And so let's say a founder's like, okay, well, we need to be at 30% contribution margin. And then you accept that. And then and then as you're looking through the numbers, you realize, oh, well, actually, if we go to 25%, we could actually make more money. Which is, I know that's actually what your goal is. I know you say you want 30%, but really what you want is more contribution margin. So, hey, by the way, we could do this instead. And then making the case. It's like, hey, this is why we should do this instead of what you're saying. And this is why it'll benefit you more. Testing it, seeing the fruits of that, and be like, oh, okay, this makes much more sense. So it's like that process of like, and it's interesting, kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's like just I'm for whatever reason, like, yes, I want to, quote unquote, please my clients and the brands that I work with, but uh, I also just want to like win. And sometimes the client doesn't know how to win. Like
Mm,
you can say, oh, like let's keep 25%, but like if I put myself in their shoes, it's like, but that doesn't actually like you're not actually growing. That doesn't actually you're not succeeding. You're not growing. You're just putting this arbitrary rule. And so, um, anyway, yeah, I think
yeah, I like.
the scoreboard is profit, and so it's like if I can find a better way to make it go up, it's usually just challenging that and testing it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of insight. That's not just marketer, but that's like operator level thinking because you're seeing the question below the question, if that makes sense. Like you're able to like say, okay, like I know ultimately what you want. And that's how like an operator thinks, right? A marketer just comes and says, okay, you want me to achieve this. Okay, so this is my target. Versus an operator is like, what
Right.
you say this is what you want to achieve, but what's the actual goal for the business? And you can see
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Let's think about a brand that wants to grow. Like, do you have other growth levers that you favor? Or are you like, yo, let's like paid?
Oh, well, if you mean if you're referring to channels,
Okay,
um,
let me think about it this way. Okay, so going from let's just say 0 to 6, 6 to 7,
yeah,
7 to 8. In those
Yeah.
tranches, how would you recommend a new brand think about growth?
How much money do they have?
How much money do they need?
So yeah, so there's multiple ways of looking at this, right? It just depends on what you're willing to risk and not risk. For example, like what is the lowest risk way to do this with the where instead of spending your money, you're spending your time is obviously organic marketing, right? Um, you put out content, you become a content creator essentially, and you build a following and try to then sell to your audience whatever it is that your product or brand is. And you could do that, and people have done that, and it is hard, and I know nothing about that, but
Mm,
that is a path for sure.
right.
um and then the inverse of that is paid media, right? So where the inputs switch. It's like you're not putting your time, well, you are, but not nearly as much if you were doing it organically, but you are obviously risking capital. So either scenario can work. It just depends on what you're willing to pay with. Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you make of the new idea that I sent you the link for this, I think a couple days ago, that this guy, I'm not going to say his name, just whatever. His philosophy is that content teams and paid media teams are pretty much fusing into one right now, where
Oh yeah, big
given
time.
the nature of algorithms and just these off platform experiences, that um, organic content serves as a substrate for paid.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely.
have you started making some of those adoptions internally where you guys are testing organically, or you're having the brand test organically and then you're
So
then
so
putting
we're not
buy behind it?
testing organically. The way what it looks like for us right now is we are taking content ideas from organic, because if they're working
Mm,
organically, they have a high likelihood of be working on paid. But we don't do anything related to organic content in terms of like making it. But it goes without saying, anyone that has an organic following, their chances of success with paid media are like 4 or 5x the normal brand for sure, because the algorithm is learning off of your followers, and it's largely showing ads to the people that have maybe already seen you. And so by the time they see your ad, it's not new. Like they're not cold anymore. And that's what makes it work better. Like that's why it works better, is because there's now a large group of people that have seen you before. So when they see an ad, they already know who you are, and that alone makes it work 10 times better. Another thing that people do in the performance space these days is they're whitelisting, and so they're finding people that already have an audience and running the ads through their page so that they can capitalize on what I just said, where they can have ads showed to their followers through their page, where their followers are already kind of like their guard is down and much more willing to engage.
sure, that makes sense. Um, let's say a little bit more on numbers. What is a metric that you keep a close eye on every week? Like, what is a couple of North Star metrics that you're always looking at, if not every day, at least every week?
Yeah, I would say the big three are in order. I would say is contribution margin, AMER, and MER. So contribution margin again is just revenue minus COGS minus marketing spend, no OpEx. AMER is acquisition MER, which is basically new customer blended ROAS. So all your new customer revenue divided by all your marketing spend. And then MER is all your revenue divided by marketing spend. And so your AMER tells you how well and how efficiently you're acquiring um, net new customers, basically. Are you profitable on them? It actually doesn't tell you if you're profitable, but it tells you, what the efficiency is on it. Um, I haven't been looking at this as much recently, just because I haven't really needed to, but for other brands that were a bit smaller, we would look at profit per new customer, which is essentially new customer AOV minus new customer COGS minus NCAC. So it tells you how much profit you get for every new customer. And that is probably one of the best ones. I haven't looked at it more recently just because I haven't had to, but if you wanted the most like granular view, it'd be that. Because like if that's above zero, then you can just keep spending into as much as you want because you're just making money on every customer. So it's a really good metric in that case. But
That's great.
yeah, those
It's
are
great
some
you
of the big
mentioned that. I
ones.
was gonna ask. I was gonna ask because like data is meant to drive at something other than just like these like crazy dashboards. Data is meant to drive at an actionable insight or something
Yes,
about the business. So, what is that a precursor to? Why is what did you call it? Profit per customer or profit per new customer? Why
per
is
new
that
customer.
important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why is
well,
that
so
important?
the goal is then again, I'm presupposing a lot of things here, but the goal is growth. The main engine for growth is paid spend. So more spend equals more growth. So then the question is, how do we get more spend? Well, to justify more spend, we have to be showing that it's um for every extra dollar that we spend, we're adding incremental profit, i.e., profit that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Mm,
So how do we measure that? Well, if we know how much profit we get per new customer and we're acquiring new customers, we know that we're adding incremental contribution margin. And so if that number is positive above zero, that means that I can continue to increase spend
because
because
as
I
you're
know
increasing
that for
spend,
every,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, because like like for yeah, if your profit per new customer is above zero, that means you're making profit for each customer and you can keep increasing
Exactly.
that, which is
Exactly.
ultimately what you're after, profit.
Exactly.
Makes
Exactly.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. With time, it gets more sophisticated, right? The biggest brand that I work on now, their profit per new customer is like negative $5, and so it begins to get more sophisticated. Well, okay, cool. Profit per new customer on first purchase is like the best, but like I said, the more that you spend, the more that number is going to go down because it's just the law of ad spend. The more you spend, the less efficient it's going to get. And so then eventually what you start to shift into is a bit more of modeling after LTV. It's like, okay, well, I know I'm going to lose $5 on day one, but I also know that on average after 60 days, I have an average net margin of $20. And so yeah, I can afford to lose the money on day one because I know I'll make it back on day 60, right? And then we kind of switch into that mode. Um, but yeah, that's for bigger brands, I would say.
Right. So is there man, data gets really deep.
It does, yeah, it does.
So is there a one or two metrics? Because we kind of started big and then we started getting more granular, which I think is important. But for a brand who wants to know, like, am I profitable today? Like at any given
Well,
time.
am I profitable today is an EBITDA question, right? It's after everyone gets paid and all my variable costs are paid, is there money left over? That's simple, right? You just look at your contribution and then subtract your OpEx.
Exactly.
But the number before that people might struggle with is the contribution margin, and there's software out there that will calculate that for you. But the thing is, am I profitable today? Is like like to understand what you need to do next, you have to kind of peel back the layers. Because am I profitable today does not mean I can continue to spend more money and grow. It's not the same
It's
thing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's why understanding am I profitable per new customer is indicative of do I have
Future
more room to
proofing.
grow? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's future
Yeah.
planning. It's not just looking at today.
Yeah.
Guys, see,
Yeah.
this is why this is why I have this guy in the margin room. He really thinks panoramically. No, for real, for real. Okay, so this is a lot of information to hold in one's head. And
Mm,
I know a lot of this just comes through experience. So let me ask you this: what tech stack, what tools do you find helpful in helping you synthesize all of this information on a daily, weekly basis, so you can look at the brands and just have a good idea of not just where they are today, but where they're going?
yeah. I think what you need to do first is just pick, let's say, two KPIs. I think the problem with most dashboards is that they give you like 100, but really you just need like two to and you base it off whatever goal is, right? And so I can think across 5 brands where those two, it's different KPIs across all of them. Some of them it's MER, some of them it's contribution margin only, some of them. So you pick your 2, and then the software is meaningless. Although the ones that I switch between, so I like Lifetimely for just getting a quick view on my contribution margin. There are other ones out there now that you can look at, but anything that will auto calculate that integrates with your marketing platforms and Shopify costs, it'll calculate this for you. So again, just taking your revenue minus costs minus marketing. So if I'm not using Lifetimely, we're just doing it manually, like in a Google Sheet, and then I'm calculating an MER and just checking that. Yeah.
So, wow, Lifetimely.
Yes.
This is not the
There's a very, very good cheap alternative that's actually blowing up right now on Twitter. I don't use this, but I'm interested in using it. It's called Clio, Kleio. It's like $29 a month, and I think it does all the same things. And it's definitely that's definitely one that I would check out for sure. I haven't tried it yet, but I've been hearing a lot of good things.
Lifetimely or Cleo. If y'all want to sponsor the pod, hey, let's hit me up and we'll see who
Yeah.
gets it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, I want to be mindful of time here. I've kind of answered that question. Okay, let's think mistakes and pains here. What mistake do you see founders make over and over again that cost them a lot of money?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to my initial answer. Is simply not understanding how to interpret their P&L. And it kind of it goes in both ways. Either it costs them money through opportunity costs, in the sense that like, oh, you could be making more, but you're not, because you have this invisible ceiling that you put up that doesn't exist. Or the opposite, where they're just thinking about, let's say, like ROAS. It's like, oh, my ROAS is 3x, and so they start spending more, but they're not actually tracking profit, and so they spend themselves into oblivion. A more recent one, and this one is this one is even like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, because it's quite sophisticated, but it's like understanding the difference between, so there's contribution margin, which is still not necessarily what makes it into your bank account. There's EBITDA. That is arguably what makes it into your bank. EBITDA and cash flow are also not the same thing. So like profit and cash flow are not the same. And the thing is, in an e-commerce business, this is where it's
Yeah.
like hyper emphasized, because for every, just because you're making profit, that doesn't mean that you're making cash that you can extract out of the business.
Yeah, to float whatever you need to pay for.
Right. Or
Yeah.
to pay for yourself. Like, just because there's profit, this still doesn't mean you can pay yourself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You still got to get the next round of inventory.
Yep.
And so that one is also, I've seen, actually, I'm thinking of a situation right now where that has caused, if there's anything that puts people out of business more, it's definitely, it's got to be something like that for sure. And honestly, I get it. It's hard, even for, like, I haven't had to sit down with it, because I think that's really where, okay, that's where it's like, I love getting into it because I just enjoy it, but like, that's really where like my role stops for sure.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no, but the little that I have had to sit with it with some founders, like, I see like it's difficult. You really need to spend the time and like wrap your head around it, because it's not an easy thing to understand.
Yeah, because there's two main rules in business that I heard. Obviously, number one, make money. Number two, don't run out of money.
Right.
Right. And just
Exactly.
because you're profitable doesn't mean you won't run out of runway.
Exactly.
Cash flow is that word, is that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Um, Phenomenal. So next question. What do you believe? Okay, what did you believe early on that you now think completely differently, or you think was wrong about scaling? So, let me articulate it clearly. What did you believe early on that you now think is completely wrong about scaling?
I would say that, I was gonna say, I would say that, like, the true, I would say the truest, or like the most contributing factor to scale is not marketing, it's product. So you start off thinking like, that you're going to be super clever. You're going to come up with like really amazing ads and funnels and all these things. You're going to be the thing that unlocks growth. And like, I'm not to downplay all that. Of course, that is the case. But at the end of the day, the most sophisticated marketers in the world cannot sell a product that nobody wants. And so product really is the largest contributing factor to how much you can scale and how fast. More than anything, for sure.
Yo, that's so good. That is a constant refrain.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
comes down to the product. Simple
100%.
enough, right? So invest in customer experience, invest in making a quality product for sure. And if I might add my own kind of like my own anecdote, if you will, not anecdote, but like my own perspective. These are really meant to be conversations, which I'm having my guests speak. But um, I think one of the routes to making a healthy product isn't just like studying your competition. That might be part of it, but
Mhm.
if your eyes are ever focused on your competition, then by definition you're always playing the second game, right? And so
Mm.
I do think that is a part of it because you look at like what quality am I trying to meet in the marketplace, but then you have to be
Right.
very resolute about what it is you're trying to accomplish with your product. And just honestly ask yourself the honest question, how deep are you willing to go on this?
Yep.
Right? So
Yep. Totally.
with launching Alter, our tagline is beauty through sacrifice, right? And
Mm.
so that is a tagline that we try to embody. And so they're very intentional decisions that I've had to make internally that have cost me thousands of dollars more than the other
Mm.
alternative, or that have added a couple of months to the production timeline as opposed going in the other direction. But that's because I sit with the question, how deep am I willing to take this? How far do I want to
Right.
go? And what is the
Yep.
experience? And thankfully, some of the early feedback that we're getting from people who we're passing the product to internally is nothing but been positive. And so, yeah, to your point, I love when you said scaling really comes down to the product fundamentally. That's amazing.
Definitely.
I guess maybe on that note or related to that note, can you think of like a hard conversation or one of the hardest conversations you've had to have with a founder about their business?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with working at an agency, you come across a bunch of different types of brands, and I've definitely worked with clients, or I've been put onto accounts that like really had no business working with a marketing agency. And so there's definitely been multiple times I've just had to tell people like, hey, like this is not like you're not gonna make this work. Like you can't sell commoditized dog bones on ecom through Facebook ads and think that you're gonna scale. Like, it's just not gonna happen. Like it's not that it's not a good business, but this channel is not gonna work for you type of thing. So like try something else. Like it's a great product. I'm not saying it's not a good product, but like you're not gonna do it this way. Um and yeah, so I think stuff like that.
That's a
There's
difficult because that goes fundamentally to the heart of their strategy. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot
yeah.
of people they probably I mean, and me included, we all just kind of like default to Meta and that being the way to grow a business, but it's not the only way. And the thing is, it's supposed to be the fastest, and I think that's why people probably gravitate to it. But a lot of people have had to realize, hey, like this product that I've spent X amount of dollars on and X amount of time on, it's not going to happen in the way that I thought. And so either you try something else that's also going to be timely, let's say time consuming, or you pivot to something different, and it's a difficult thing to stomach for sure when you spend a lot of time and money on something.
Yeah, on that note, that's so interesting because you and I were having a private conversation, and I'm thinking about like the launch strategy and the growth strategy for Alter, and you actually said to me, "Don't start with paid media yet," because of some of the other things that we have, some of the other
Yeah.
distribution channels that we have access to. Your advice to
Yeah.
me was like, "Don't run to Meta right away. Do these other things first, and then consider." So,
Yeah, because like
yeah,
I think if the goal is to, especially in your case where I see you guys are investing a ton into the brand and like really wanting to make this a long-term thing, um it's interesting when you think about it in, let's say, in terms of a decade. It's like there's no real rush necessarily to try to like, well, let's go and crack Meta immediately, number one, especially knowing the risk on the other side of that, which is that like you should assume that you will lose money by
Hmm.
testing meta. Like, you will. So
Yeah.
like, and so if money is not necessarily something that you're willing to part with super easily, then it's like, okay, then what's the rush? And if you know that you're going to be dedicated to this for X amount of years, it's like, okay, well, let's build organically as much as we can. Um, prove out the concepts, get feedback, things like this, and then once there's some kind of feedback, then try. But on a more practical level, the other thing that I think about is, again, let's go back to what we were saying earlier. The the one thing that you can do to increase your chance of success on paid is building up that kind of organic following / hype. Because then what happens is you launch the ads, the algo is kind of like piggybacking off of that, versus starting cold. And so even on a purely practical level, if you start organically and actually build up some kind of momentum there, doesn't mean massive, but something, you at least give something for the meta ads algo to kind of like piggyback off of, versus starting completely cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love part of what I hear you say there is your goals will determine your strategy, or your goals will absolutely influence your strategy. So if you're like, I'm just trying to make a quick flip within a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 years, like, yeah, bro, go brazy, man, go balls deep into meta. But if you're thinking in decades, then be more mindful of the fact that you want to do this. So like, yeah, goals should inform strategy. And on that note, founders, like, if you haven't sat with yourself and asked yourself, what is my goal? And not just monetarily, but like, why this business? Like, one of the questions I asked you earlier, and I always ask
Yeah,
every
that's a
founder who
great
comes
point.
on here,
Yeah,
is like, why this business? Like, there are a million businesses you could start. Why? And you have to sit with yourself and understand, like, what am I trying to accomplish beyond just the monetary goal? We all need money. We all want to make money, because that why will produce the goal, and the goal will then produce a strategy. So,
yeah. Well,
um, go
it's
ahead.
a real life example of that is like I think, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money quickly. It's just like you say, it changes with your approach. So like, I'm thinking of, drop shippers, or even I had a brand idea at one point, and my I really was not like personally invested into the brand. I'm like, hey, this is a good opportunity to arbitrage, cool. So then I just went straight into like, let me test it, and if I can't make something work within, the first 30 days or X amount of dollars of spend, then I move on.
Mm,
Um, but that's very different. Let's say
and
someone like,
that's
sure, like, I'm
fair.
trying to build something. Yeah, it's just different goals. It's very different than you being like, I want to build something over the next X amount of years and really invest my time. Then it'd be like, okay, well then you can go into meta, but it's like you have, you're planning on doing this for a while. So like, let's build it up and do it with a bit more time, I guess.
I'm
Yeah.
an intention. Got you.
Yeah.
I don't have a little bit more time with you, so there's only two more things I want to touch on. Um, AI. I see your post.
Mm.
I see your post going brazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Becoming the AI king. Talk to me. So the AI and ads king, talk to me. Like, the first question, I'm gonna ask you the question. I'm gonna answer it because I know what it is. So like, all of these
Sure.
lead magnets and Reddit crawlers and Claude integrations, these aren't just lead magnets that you're making. You're actually using them like with your clients. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how helpful, how revolutionary, how is AI, I guess, how are you bringing AI to bear
Yeah.
in growing a brand beyond just like interfacing with the chat window?
Yeah. It's definitely changed everything for sure. In a matter of, it's interesting because like it happened, at least for us, the adoption happened slowly and then all at once. Like within 2 weeks, everything changed, type of thing. Um, so for us, we're these days we're largely a performance creative partner, and so we're using AI across the entire process, from research, ideation, production, copywriting, all of these things, making the team more efficient. And yeah, I mean, I could go into any one of those things, but it's definitely changed everything. And I mean, at the most basic level, at the least, it's like 3 to 4x our output across everything. Like anything that you can think of that we used to do, we now do 3 times the amount of it, basically, at the same level of quality. So
Can you draw a line? So like that speaks to efficiency, right? Which I think that much is a given, and at least it should be a given. Can you draw a line between AI and results and performance? So not just we have more output, but I can actually say like we used AI to develop this strategy and then executed it, and this actual thing resulted in net incremental value for this specific brand. Or are you still trying to like working through that?
that's a really interesting question, to be honest, because my initial answer was something along the lines of, I'm just looking at a bunch of the brands that we work with. My initial answer is something along the lines of no. The only thing that I can potentially think of is because, for example, we can do more volume now, that in turn gives us more shots on goal and you can say gets us more results. So, but no, like the thing is, but even then, it's like, is it just the volume or is it still just the strategy? So that really is getting those results. So it's like, my gut answer is like, does it actually change the amount of results? It doesn't seem like it, at least not yet, but it's allowing us to do more. Okay, so here's something I can think of. Like, so on an individual brand, is it necessarily allowing us to change the game in terms of results? No. But are we able to onboard more brands than we would have and still get results for them? Yeah. So, which is still a function of efficiency, I think.
It's interesting.
Ultimately.
So
Yeah.
you're using AI, that's so interesting. You're using AI even like on an operational level for like your own agency, obviously.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Big time.
Across
Big time.
everything. Happened very
Across it.
slowly and
Yeah.
then it happened all at once.
We rebuilt our entire, like, we used to run off Notion. We essentially rebuilt our project management software tailored to our specific workflow. And now the whole company runs off of our internal software now.
Okay, so you're not using an off-the-shelf SaaS. You guys have built your
No,
own custom.
that's correct. Yes, that's
Did
correct.
you
Yeah.
build it or did you get somebody from outside? Because I know you
Uh,
built those.
I built it. Yeah, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sebi V, this guy's a freaking legend.
Well, no, you know what? It's very accessible to people though these days. You can pull up. Have you tried Lovable?
I've played around with Lovable. I haven't.
Yeah, it'll
I've
blow
seen
your mind.
these.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, and I can imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, the technical background does help, but I have a buddy who runs an agency, and he's doing the same thing. He doesn't have a developer background, and he's done the same thing. So it's very accessible these days.
Yeah,
If you sit
because you can
down
even
and learn the
use you
tools.
can even use AI. Sorry, you can even use AI to help you scheme out what you need to build based on what
Yes,
you're doing. So you can literally feed it,
correct.
this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to streamline this. How should I build this? What should I use? And then you can actually, you just need a couple of hours or a couple of days spending time with it.
Yeah.
That's
And
incredible.
when you're building stuff for like internal use, which is like 5 people using it, it's a lot more forgiving. You don't need to, you can do things wrong and it's still fine because it works. You know what I mean?
Is it? Is it cheaper? Is it cheaper than using an off-the-shelf tool like a Notion or ClickUp or any of these other guys?
Well, yes, definitely, but you don't do it for the cost. You do it for the fact that it makes everyone's life way better. Um, so like again, like our project management system is every single step is tailored to our process. So for example, when a designer, or sorry, when a strategist goes and let's say writes a brief for an ad, so it exists as a task on the timeline of the project manager, like a Kanban board. He can't move it into the next status until he fills out all the things that are needed to move it into the next status. And that's the same at every step. When a designer submits an ad, he has to submit it with 3 variations. He can't submit an ad unless he has 3 variations in it. So it removes a lot of first of all, it keeps all the data super clean, right?
Mm,
Because it's like, typically in like a Notion, people are dragging cars, they're skipping
yeah.
rules, or doing whatever they want type of thing. this kind of like forces like everything is clean, but also it removes a lot of the thinking, right? It's just like, okay, like
Yeah.
I pull up, I open my thing, it tells me what I need to input, and then you go.
Oh man.
And so the feedback that I've gotten from the team is like, I just have to think a lot less, which is nice, you know?
No, we're gonna have to set up like a screen share.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about my own agency now, and I'm thinking like, yeah, we use ClickUp,
Yeah.
and Figma, and obviously Klaviyo, but our PM is ClickUp for the most part. And
Yeah.
ClickUp is a super robust tool that can do a lot
Yeah.
of different things, but we don't need all of that there. So I'm gonna have to like take a peek and see what's happening behind the scenes. All right, one more question for you because I know like we're running low on time, and I do appreciate you taking the time to speak to me as well as
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
viewers of the
100%.
pod. Um, one sentence, one piece of actionable advice. Like it can span ops, systems, marketing, paid media, retention, even I want to say philosophical and mindset, but maybe less so. My point is it has to be actionable for an early stage DTC founder who has maybe just crossed six figures or is well into six figures and is gunning for seven. One
Hmm.
piece of advice.
Um, yeah, I would say understand your bottleneck with absolute clarity. And if you're a brand owner, I would say get that bottleneck verified. So like, cause you might think you know what it is. Um, you might be wrong. And so like maybe get, 2 to 3 people to consult but once you know with absolute clarity what that bottleneck is, you can get a little bit more lasered on what your options are to solve for it. But you need to understand what your actual bottleneck is first. Yeah.
Bottleneck and verify your bottleneck.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
quotable. Sebastian, Sebastian freaking Valiente, man. I said off camera, man, you are what I aspire to be, man. And
I appreciate you, man.
quick backstory, like Sebi sent me my first agency client, like my first recurring
Mm,
agency client. You know what I'm saying? So Sebi and I have history like before all of this, and then we kind of like went our different ways and then we reconnected and we had very parallel stories. Like we are both in one industry before, we kind of expanded out of that industry, and then we evolved into the same industry, which is e-com. And so when I reconnected
mm,
with him, Sebi has been a tool and a resource for me. Both in terms of sending clients, but also in just helping me expand my knowledge of growth marketing, email and SMS to start. But then now, as I'm a brand owner as well, like obviously my understanding of growing brands is becoming a lot more panoramic. And Sebi is a source that I frequently go to for advice or counsel. So like, y'all check him out. Brother, where can people find you?
you could hit me up on LinkedIn, Sebastian Valiente. I'm on Twitter, Sebastian underscore DTC. Yeah, either one of those works.
This has been The Margin Room. You've been locked in with Sebi V, Sebastian Valiente, and Shopé. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next episode.